So another thing is solid loading on viscosity. This is probably more or less you would expect. The higher the loading, typically viscosity, the higher the viscosity. The extreme case is you have just powder and then you add just a little bit of liquid. It doesn't really shear flow. Make sense? So here we are plotting viscosity versus shearing rate. Viscosity versus shearing rate. The higher the solid loading, the higher the viscosity. Make sense? And people, now you see, okay, why do you want to use higher solid loading? Higher maybe density, but more efficient, right? Low solid loading means I have to drive up a lot of solvent, which takes more time, which takes more energy, right? So ideally, you want the highest solid loading as high as possible. But at the same time, quite often, naturally, the higher your solid loading, you're sacrificing in what? Viscosity. You have too high viscosity, which means what? The viscosity too high means it's difficult for the slurry to fill into fine shape, fill in the gap, to remove some bubbles. That's why quite sometimes you have to compromise. You cannot use too high solid loading. You want high solid loading, but you cannot sometimes because the viscosity may be too high. It cannot fill in the fine details. Make sense? Think like the honey. It will be very difficult to reach some of the fine openings.